Okay. Good morning, children. This is Shiva from Montessori Group of Schools, Telangana State. Already we have discussed about the first chapter of our 9th class. What is the name of the first chapter in the 9th class? Is cell, its a structure and functions. In this chapter already we have discussed some topics in the previous videos, that is in my video 1 and video 2. So, we have discussed what is the meaning of cell, what is the meaning of typical cell, how a plant cell will be, how an animal cell will be, what are the difference between plant cell and animal cell. And in the next video we have seen the important roles and functions of cell membrane and cell wall. Cell membrane and cell wall is completed in our previous videos. Now, today we are going to discuss another important topic, that is nucleus. So, in your lower classes you might have heard the word nucleus, but you doesn't know what is this nucleus, what is this nucleus, where it is present, what is its functions, everything you doesn't know. Now, I am going to tell you what are the important functions and roles of this nucleus. See, every cell, almost all the cells contain nucleus. Okay, there are some cells which do not have nucleus, but we are going to discuss at the end of this video session what do you call those cells. So, before that, let us see, suppose if this is a cell, it contains a nucleus at the center. It contains what? Nucleus at the center. Okay, we call this as nucleus. Then you may get a doubt, who discovered the nucleus for the first time? Can anybody answer that question? Who discovered the nucleus for the first time? Shall I? Okay, I'll tell you. Who discovered the nucleus for the first time is Robert Brown. Who was that man? Robert Brown, in the year 1831. Robert Brown in 1831. Who discovered the nucleus? Robert Brown in the year 1831. So, you may get a confusion if I ask you a question, who discovered the cell? You will answer that Robert Hooke. So, if as I told you just a few days back, or you have seen the video yesterday or day before yesterday, you may answer that Robert Hooke. But after 10-15 days, if I ask who discovered the cell and who discovered the nucleus, you may have a slight confusion whether it is Robert Hooke or Robert Brown. For easy remembrance, you remember like this: Brown nucleus. How will you remember? Brown nucleus. Brown nucleus means nothing but, you can remember that Robert Brown discovered nucleus, Robert Hooke discovered cell. Okay, you may remember both the scientists. You have to remember both the scientists. First of all, Robert Hooke and Robert Brown. Robert Hooke discovered cell for the first time. He observed under the microscope. Then who discovered the nucleus is Robert Brown. Hooke cell, Brown nucleus. In which year? 1831. And so, what are these important functions of this nucleus? You know, this nucleus is called as a cell's control room. What do you call it as? Cell's control room. So, like it is nothing but it is like a head of say we all are okay, even you will be under the control of your parents. Your parents will try to control you. In the same way, this nucleus will control all the cell organs. That's why it is called cell controls room. Then it is called cells control room. And another important function is, so who discovered the nucleus is Robert Brown in the year 1831. And what do you call it as a cells control room? See, in an important scientist named Sleeden. So yes. So Schleiden, an important scientist called Schleiden, he proposed a theory called cell theory. We are going to discuss about the cell theory at the end of the chapter only. At the end of the chapter, we'll discuss about the cell theory. He was one of the prominent, he was an important person or a prominent person who proposed a cell theory. So, who proposed cell theory? Schleiden. I'll ask you at the end. Who proposed cell theory means you should tell a Schleiden name. And one more scientist is Schwann. But here, this is Schleiden. He was one of the prominent person in case of cell theory. He thought that new cells are born from nucleus. Who? Schleiden. Schleiden thought that new cells are born from nucleus. New cells are born from nucleus. Who? Schleiden. Schleiden, he proposed a cell theory and he thought that new cells are born from a nucleus, and he called nucleus as what? Cytoblast. He called it as what? Cytoblast. Cyto means cell, blast means produce, that means it produces new cells. But it is not correct. Even during cell division, the entire cell will divide along with the cell. Nucleus also will divide into two halves. Regarding the cell division, you learn in your next class, that is in the class 10 you are going to learn about the cell division. So far what we have discussed is nucleus. It is one of the important cell organelle. Who discovered that important cell organelle nucleus? Robert Brown. In which year? 1831. And what do you call it as? Cell's control room. And an important scientist, what was his name? Schleiden. What he proposed? He proposed an important theory called cell theory, and according to him, what this Schleiden said regarding the nucleus, he thought that new cells are born from nucleus, but it is not correct. What he called that nucleus as a cytoblast. Who? Schleiden. Schleiden called nucleus as cytoblast, and he thought that new cells are originated or born from a nucleus. And another important function of a nucleus is it contains what? Genetic material, DNA. What it contains? Genetic material, DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Deoxyribonucleic acid. So you might have heard the word DNA. What is this DNA then? DNA is our genetic material. Genetic means the genes. So you got your parental characters. You may resemble either your father or mother, sometimes both the characters of your father or mother. So why you are resembling the characters of father or mother or both? The reason is that you are carrying the genes of your parents, that is father and mother. So who is responsible for taking that characters from parents to the children is nucleus. So, and what do this nucleus contains inside the nucleus? So if you take this as a nucleus, inside the nucleus, and a black staining body will be there. It is called nucleolus. It is called a nucleolus, and along with that genetic material will be there. So what do you call this genetic material? As DNA. What do you call it as? DNA. DNA means deoxyribonucleic acid. So what is the role of this DNA? DNA will carry the characters from parents to the children. So why we are resembling our parents? The reason is that this DNA is carrying the genes, and where this DNA is located? Inside the nucleus. So where this nucleus is present? Inside the cell, and where the cells are present? In our body, and each and every cell will contain a nucleus. So have you understood? Is it clear up to now? So what we have discussed, the nucleus. Who discovered nucleus? Robert Brown. In which year? 1831. What it is called? Cell's control room. All the functions all the functions of this cell are under the control of this nucleus. That's why it is called cell's control room. In earlier days, as all the functions are under the control of nucleus, in olden days people thought that, especially scientists like Schleiden, who was Schleiden, he was a great scientist. He proposed cell theory, and even he was awarded Nobel Prize was along with another person we are going to discuss at the end of the chapter. And he thought that new cells are born. New cells are born. From where the new cells are born? From a nucleus. Actually, new cell will be born from a cell itself during the time of cell division. But he thought that from nucleus, even nucleus also will divide. And he called it as a cytoblast. And so this nucleus contain an important material inside it. So what do you call that material? As a genetic material. What is that genetic material called? DNA. What is the role of DNA then? The role of DNA is that it carries the characters from parents to the children. So we all resemble our parents. Why we are resembling our parents? Why not the other animal or any other living being? The reason is that, so this is DNA, where this DNA is present inside the nucleus, it carries that information from parents to the children. The parental characters can be seen in the children mainly because of this DNA. And another important thing is that based on whether, yes, in the beginning I told you, do all the cells have a nucleus? No. So there, based on the presence of a nucleus, the organisms are divided into two categories, like eukaryotic organisms or eukaryotic cell and a prokaryotic cell. So how we have divided? We have divided them into eukaryotic cell, eukaryotic versus prokaryotic. Eukaryotic, eukaryotes, karyom is a Latin word. So karyom means nucleus. So based on the presence of a nucleus and nuclear membrane, they are divided into two types. One is eukaryotic cell and prokaryotic cell, or eukaryotic organisms and prokaryotic organisms. Eukaryotic means if the organism contain nucleus and nuclear membrane, if nucleus and nuclear bound membrane, and nucleus with nuclear membrane and cell organelles with cell their membranes, then it is called a eukaryotic cell. If a nucleus, so this is a nucleus with a nuclear membrane. See this, the layer that surrounds the nucleus is called nuclear membrane, like the cell membrane. If the layer that surrounds the nucleus is called nuclear membrane. What do you call the layer that surrounds the nucleus? Nuclear membrane. And the liquid portion present inside the cell, we call it as cytoplasm. In the same way, the liquid portion present inside the nucleus is called nucleoplasm. What do you call it as? Nucleoplasm. The liquid present inside the cell, what do you call it as? Cytoplasm, yes. And the liquid portion present inside the nucleus is called nucleoplasm. Nucleus is nucleoplasm and a cell is cytoplasm. So based on, if nucleus is present, they all are what? Eukaryotes, all the plant and animal cells. And if nucleus is absent with a membrane, nucleus with a nuclear membrane is absent, then it is called a prokaryotes. So yes, so before I start about nucleus, I told you that based on the nucleus, based on the presence of nucleus, the organisms are categorized into two types. There is eukaryotes and prokaryotes. If a nucleus with a nuclear membrane is present, if a nucleus with a nuclear membrane is present, it is called eukaryotes. Membrane bound cell organelles, even cell organelles also should contain a membrane. Nucleus with a nuclear membrane and cell organelles with a membrane, then they all will come under eukaryotes. And nucleus, if nucleus and nuclear membrane is absent, then they all are called prokaryotes. If a nucleus with the nuclear membrane is absent, they all are called prokaryotes. So example for eukaryotes is all plants and animals, and prokaryotes is cyanobacteria, bacteria, blue-green algae. So cyanobacteria is otherwise called blue-green algae. These are some viruses. These are the examples which do not contain nucleus with a nuclear membrane. So far what we have discussed is, this is also important topic, that is what is the role of a nucleus. So what is the role of nucleus? For almost all the cells, even almost all the cells will contain nucleus. And if nucleus is, so even based on nucleus also became a what, and played an important role by while dividing the organisms. How they have divided? Based on the location, based on the presence of nucleus. If nucleus is present, they are put under, they are kept under the eukaryotes. If nucleus is absent, they are kept under what? Prokaryotes. So what is nucleus? Who discovered nucleus? Robert Brown. In which year? 1831. And what do you call this nucleus? As a cell's control room. And an important scientist called Schleiden, he proposed a theory called cell theory. And in the beginning, this Schleiden thought that new cells were born from a nucleus, and he named this nucleus as what? Cytoblast. Later, the cells, they divide originally, or the cells will divide automatically, and they involve in the cell division, and even nucleus also will divide in undergo division, that is nuclear division. And what is the important role of this nucleus is, the nucleus contain an important material inside it. There is nothing but called as the genetic material, DNA. The DNA is a genetic material, and if you observe the nucleus, this is the nucleus, and so I have drawn this nucleus. If you magnify it, and even I forgot to tell you, it is one of the largest cell organelle. An important point I missed here. Nucleus is one of the largest, or the largest cell organelle. Which is the largest cell organelle? Is nucleus. Largest cell organelle, and largest as well as prominent, distinct. Distinct means very clear. Even you can observe this nucleus very clearly under a compound microscope or electron microscope. So it is another important function of this nucleus. So let us recall once. So who discovered the nucleus? Robert Brown. In which year? 1831. It is one of the largest cell organelle and distinct cell organelle. Largest means you can see it very clearly even under a compound microscope. And what are the other names here? What are its roles? Like cell's control room, and in beginning it is called as the cytoblast. Who? Schleiden, he was one of the important person or scientist who proposed a theory called cell theory. He stated that new cells are born from nucleus, and he called it as cytoblast. And what do the nucleus contains? It contains an important material in it. What do you call that important material? As a genetic material. So what is the genetic material called? DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. And DNA genetic material, that is deoxyribonucleic acid. So we resemble our parents. Why we resemble our parents? Because of the DNA. And based on the presence or absence of nucleus, the organisms are differentiated into two types, like eukaryotic and prokaryotic. Eukaryotes means which contain nucleus, and prokaryotes means which do not contain nucleus. Okay children, so after watching all the three videos, you can come to a conclusion and you can get some idea what is the meaning of a cell, and what is the meaning of a cell membrane, cell wall, and nucleus. And along with that, you will come to know what are the difference between plant cell and animal cell. So in the coming videos, we are going to learn other cell organelles. So we have discussed one important cell organelle. Other cell organelles like mitochondria, ribosomes, Golgi complex, lysosomes, everything, all those cell organelles we are going to discuss in the next video. Thank you for watching.